Welcome to the Amplified CEO with VC and serial entrepreneur Richard Stroupe.
Yeah, but you build a legacy around one game like 12, 20 years ago.
when you're at a school like where we went, you only have so many opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Most of our games are if you win it, okay.
Yeah.
But you don't have that many times to make a statement.
Right.
So
No, you're right.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, East Carolina actually recruited me as well. They were the only Division I school that recruited me. I had all D2s and a couple junior colleges, but of course my dad, I remember specifically, I was talking to my dad about this, and he's like, there is no way in hell you're going to go to East Carolina.
No.
It's like, no, this is not
because don't say Halloween.
No, because he felt like it was a party school, and I would lose myself.
It's interesting because it probably is considered that for many reasons, but mostly because of Playboy in their marketing campaign that we weren't just a party school, but we were above most schools because we took graduate level partying classes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But and it still haunts us today, to be honest with you. I mean, the medical school's second to none.
Mm-hmm.
I think the business school, if you look what folks that came out of there, is incredible.
Right.
But it just has that reputation, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's undergrad is the second largest school in the state.
Correct.
Yeah.
The campus is huge.
It's beautiful too.
Yeah.
People don't really realize it.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I'm proud of it. I went to ECU. My daughter went to ECU and got a master's as accountant, works with RSM. My son went to ECU. They both graduated in the business school, and he was at Cap Trust, and he just recently left to go do his entrepreneurial thing.
Okay.
So, really, really proud of that.
So when did you get involved, after, as far as the board of visitors? And
Well, let's don't quote the year because I can't remember the year, but it was probably 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
I was asked to sit on the board of visitors and rose through. I was vice chairman of that board for a while.
Mm.
And but then I just I felt like I needed to focus on other things. I mean, you can't spread it too thin.
Well, it's very time consuming, right?
Yeah.
I was on the board of advisors for Appalachian State College of Business, not the board of visitors, but but even there, you're trying to help them with the curriculum and give them perspective of how industry is evolving and what skills they're looking for to help. Ultimately, we're trying to help find kids jobs and place them into industry and prepare them as best we can. And there's always a mismatch between where academia is at and then where industry is. And usually the curve is not too bad.
Not too bad, but industry's always ahead, right? So
Not like now.
You think?
I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine at App State about this. I told her, I said, there's always kind of been a gap where you could defend and say academia is providing foundational skills, not the technical skills that you need in the industry, but it gives you the ability to take those skills on and come up to speed pretty quickly. But at least you've got the foundation.
Yeah.
The math, the sciences, the communications, and even some of the IT stuff. It's just foundational knowledge.
Yeah.
But now I kind of feel like with AI and how disruptive it's becoming, that gap is widening much faster than ever. And I'm not sure academia knows what to do about it.
Well, that's my point. We got to get back to the basics, and that is kids and even us at 50 some odd years old, right? We got to think back to solving problems. How do we solve problems? And certainly AI is, can help with that. But we're not AI. There's only about a handful of AI companies out there.
Right.
But we can all use AI to enhance what we're doing. I spoke with a business owner that I sold the business to him, and he's in South Carolina. It's a great telecom business. And he was telling me this morning how he was using AI to build in efficiencies, and he's making just as much profit on the smaller deals as he is on the big deals.
Right.
And that made me so happy, for a company that is just wiring and doing this, trenching and things like that, using AI to, build efficiencies, and it's amazing, So now, with that being said, full transparency, this guy came from AWS, Amazon Web Services,
so
right?
He
knew the thing, but it's still pretty impressive what folks are doing out there.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, because we talk about invoking efficiencies and building in workflows and automation, but ultimately one of the most expensive aspects of that model is labor. So if you're automating workflows, then you're removing human interactions that help automate the workflows. They need to be more creative about it. I mean, AI is very powerful, and instead of looking for ways to be efficient by cutting resources, they should focus on being creative on expanding opportunities, expanding business models, expanding resources, so that individuals don't feel like they're being displaced. More or less, they feel like they're being complemented.
Right.
By another coworker, so to speak, and still being able to enable their job be successful.
A coworker or five.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a conversation within the conversation, and with your background in venture capital, you've got to be looking at it from a different lens altogether. How is this going to disrupt some of the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah.
How much money is going to need to be raised? Because back in the day, I hate saying that word, that phrase, but I kind of went through it 10, 15 years ago myself, raising capital. And it was all about, some equipment and FF&E and marketing and all that. But it was mostly because you wanted to hire a team, whether it's, through HR, a team for programmers or a team for sales and so forth. And now with AI, do you need that, or do you need as many? And that's what's going to be really fascinating over the next. I mean, it's a great time to, we're both lucky to be in it right now, because it's the plate is clean in a way.
Right.
And you can think about problems and then think about solving those problems in a different, kind of in a different context. I mean, it kind of gets back, I know we don't want to get into this right now, but IQExit I would never be able to do this without AI. But we're not an AI company.
Right. But you use AI to enable the operations.
Absolutely.
To
we
scale.
use AI, and we're able to use AI to scale.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is a little bit different, but we're able to do it to scale, and that's what makes it. That's what makes it work.
Right. Yeah.
So kind of exciting.
Yeah. Tell me about your journey before getting into the details of your current venture. I'd love to learn more about that and understand the market and what you're seeing, for helping some of your clients. But
well, I mean, I developed IQExit through the lens of business brokerage and M&A, and but it didn't really start there. There was a journey before that, right?
Yeah.
So much like your audience, I'm still interested in building something, and so I've always been a serial entrepreneur. Started my first company in 1997. I know that seems a while ago, but I was working in the environmental field. I'm a geologist by training.
Okay.
And so I was traveling pretty much during the week, and then I would get home on Friday and sit in the office until Friday, o'clock 30, and sending out, back in the days, faxes, requests for proposals, requests for information, and so forth for 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. And I just felt like there was a better way to do it, and that's when the internet was coming about. And so we put all of that. I teamed up with a gentleman that used to work for Northern Telecom, which doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
But I'm aging myself. But we started a little business in the third bedroom, and it kind of blossomed. And I raised capital out of Boston, and moved the business from Raleigh to Boston for a few years.
That's always the ask.
Yes, it is.
Take our money, but live in our backyard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a pre-Shark Tank thing. I went up there. I didn't even know what an angel investor was. Didn't really have a business plan. I just knew it worked, and we were scaling. And met some folks up there, and they kind of put a team around me, and we built a business. It was basically a procurement solution,
Okay.
online procurement solution. We were focused on engineering and environmental companies. And but what was significant about that in my journey is I was introduced to my chairman at the time, and he kind of led the investment round, Ed Fredkin. And Ed was basically the director of the artificial intelligence lab at MIT. And so he started talking about this stuff 25, 30 years ago, and I had no idea what the heck he was talking about, but he was just a real brilliant man. He passed away about a year or so ago, but I learned a lot from him, and he brought in our first chief technical officer, and his name was Victor Briabrin. And Victor's claim to fame was he was Gorbachev's director, his chief technical officer, when Gorbachev was the director of agriculture before he became premier in Russia. And Ed recruited Victor over to teach at MIT. But before doing that, when he was in Russia, he developed the computer game Tetris.
Interesting.
And so that was a real easy in. I was, we were doing enterprise sales, but I would always, lead in. We've got Victor Briabrin as our chief technical officer and Tetris, and it was just like, oh, welcome. So that was so I was surrounded by some really, really smart people, and of course there was more than that around, but that kind of got me into, never thought about starting a business, and but solving problems. And that's how my journey kind of started.
Did you raise capital from a VC or an angel, or who was it in Boston?
We raised capital through angel, mostly big angels.
And they had a demand that you move up to Boston?
Well, yes. So they wanted to put I was 27 years old at the time with a geology degree, right? Yeah. So they wanted to put a management team in place. So one of the demands was I move up to Newton Center, Massachusetts, which was only 30 T stops to Fenway Park. Right. And that was really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was up there for 2.5 years, and we eventually moved the business from there to Edenton, and during the dot-com crash, and we had a glass palace up there that we decided we didn't need anymore, so we moved down to Edenton. Yeah. So I kind of got back into my roots.
Right.
Yeah. Up there, I could hear my own accent. When I moved down here, I was like, okay, I'm back.
Yeah. I've spent some time up there, and my daughter goes to school up there right now. But but Boston's great.
Great place.
Yeah. Just not in the wintertime.
No, I am a Eastern North Carolina guy through and through, so I don't wear socks.
Oh,
and
okay.
I for whatever reason, I didn't wear socks up there, and it was a little brutal at times.
There's a reason why there's underground tunnels at Harvard.
Yeah. So,
you spoke about Fenway. That's like one of the best ballparks.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
We talked about Camden Yards yesterday. We had a guest on who's from Baltimore area.
That's another great ballpark.
Camden's beautiful, but Fenway is just unique.
You can smell it.
Yeah.
Yes, and we would, after work, sometimes we would just jump on the tee and see if we can get tickets. And I remember, this is going to date me as well, but I remember a buddy of mine, a coworker of mine, we went and scalped 2 tickets, and we didn't know where they were. It didn't really matter at the time, but we looked at them and we were like, these look like pretty good seats. They were second row behind home plate.
Wow.
When Pedro Martinez was pitching.
Wow. And
they were playing the Montreal Expos, I think it was, or maybe it was the Blue Jays, one of the Canadian teams. And it was unbelievable because everybody's seen him somewhere on YouTube or whatever pitching. Yeah. But his balls would move so much that the guys would truly be bailing out. It was amazing. And he had that little mean streak anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But it was incredible. And really, anywhere you sat in that ballpark was a phenomenal seat.
Yeah, for sure. So that's great.
It was good.
So how long did you stay in Boston before you moved back to North Carolina?
I raised money in, it was probably about 2.5, 3 years. Okay. But I didn't really spend a whole lot of time in Boston. It was those days that you were on a plane 2 and 3 times a week, basically. Yeah. And we were doing strategic deals, partnerships, I was working with Microsoft, Yahoo, on their campuses and so forth out there. So that gave me really unbelievable exposure going out there. But we were we were everywhere. It seemed like, and a lot of energy. And we were in California one day, and then excuse me, Texas the next. It seemed like.
Right.
So we were just hustling. And that's what it takes.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of folks, it comes easy for some, but a lot of times it takes that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that experience being a young man, because as you mentioned, surrounding yourself with very smart people and absorbing their energy and trying to understand exactly why they do, how they do it, and how that can be applied to your business model and to scale operations. It's a unique experience for sure.
It really was, and I don't think I could be doing what I'm doing today, even on the business brokerage side, without that experience, because I'm able to relate to the business owners a little bit more and what their journey is like.
So did you exit from that company, or did you sell it, or what was the strategy?
We've had so that company started as a one product company, but when we moved down to Edenton, what was really interesting was we were a big fish in a small pond, and so there's not many technology companies, and back then Wilmington isn't really what it is today, and so we were a big little technology company in Edenton in eastern North Carolina. So we were having folks, coming to us and saying, "Hey, I've got this idea. Can you create it or develop it?" And so we kind of diversified a little bit, and we almost became not a venture technology. Well, we were more like a venture technology company, where we would partner up if we felt like there was an opportunity with entrepreneurs that had this idea, that had this vision, and then they needed us to create whatever it was, and then we would actually go out and raise capital for them. We would put together the business plan, performa and the technology, and we started 3 or 4 different ventures that way.
Wow,
and
that's
so
interesting.
That's where I got into the banking side of things, and again, we developed POS solutions, and it was just it was fun.
Did you earn equity for that work, or was it more just of a fee?
Well, what we did was we developed whoever the entrepreneur that came in with the idea, we create a separate entity. And so, yes, the company had equity, and we had a company called Broad Street Software Group, and that had equity in the business, and then we all had, my partners would have equity in Broad Street.
Yeah, that's a great model.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Does that still exist, or?
No, we disbanded that, so. Probably, I guess, a little over 10 years ago, I was kind of burned out with the startups and raising capital and doing all the things that you have to do. And so I kind of pivoted, and I had a investor that had a small boutique M&A firm in Virginia. And he was telling me for a few years that I'd be perfect doing M&A, And so I dipped my toe into it and found that I was pretty successful doing it. I was pitching companies that had no revenue, no P&L, no balance sheet, right? to pitching companies that were, very successful and had a real enterprise value. And so it was a very easy transition. So I've been doing M&A for about 10 years now.
Okay. So did you have to go back and get any kind of training, like for investment banking or Series 7?
Well, I didn't have to do that. But I had to go back and learn how to evaluate businesses.
Yeah, like discounted cash flow.
Discount cash flow. And by the way, that's the hardest thing ever. I don't even do that. So it's a total skill. I'd have to go to Wake Forest and get my MBA or something to do that. But I have folks that can do that. So that, and it's been a great experience meeting a lot of entrepreneurs and really looking under the hood of so many businesses and see how they're run.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Richard, that I really enjoy doing is not just looking at the business and the financials, but really looking at the businesses, their culture, and that gets me excited.
Right.
Is the culture.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of put 2 and 2 together. You got to have great books, and you got to, be profitable, but you also have to have that culture. And there's other things too that we look at, but certainly culture is really important.
Yeah. I completed a class after I sold my first company. Like you, I got kind of addicted to the deal because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of discussions, and Of course, the front porch of a deal is, kind of exciting. Of course, the back porch is more of the transition.
Yeah.
And, there's a anecdote. It said 90% of all M&A deals fail because of failure to execute transition. So it got me interested in it. So I pitched the company that bought me. I said, if you're going to continue doing deals, I'd like to be a part of that strategy. And they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Well, there's this class at University of Pennsylvania called M&A, Mergers and Acquisitions. Can I take it? And you're like, sure. There was one full day where they talked about valuation. And the guy who wrote this book, I can't remember his name.
That thick, probably.
Yes.
Yep. I've got it.
It's called Valuation.
Yeah.
The name of the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote it is a professor. He was there that day. And and he talked about DCF and EBITDA, cash flow analysis, and trying to find a happy median to kind of pick. And, whenever I sold my first company, it was all based on EBITDA in government contracting, GovCon. And it's kind of like EBITDA multiples is kind of a shortcut. It kind of shows you how the business performs. However, it doesn't really show you truly. There's some gaps in there, and you have to find those gaps.
Well, that's due diligence.
Yeah, and cash flows.
Yeah.
It's you may have a profitable EBITDA business, but your cash flow could be very poor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, we look at EBITDA, and we also look at in a different term, but it's similar. I mean, you still have to recast the financials, but we look at seller discretionary earnings. And keep in mind, the deals that I do are kind of below the investment banking, sector that are doing, enterprise value businesses of $50 million and higher.
Yeah.
And, the sweet spot that I have found for myself is that, that $1 to $2 million up to that $25, $30 million range.
Okay.
There's really not that many, people doing that.
Right.
We do have business brokers out there and that are doing more Main Street type businesses, but and that's kind of a crowded little space right there. But I've found my blue ocean in that space between the business broker and the investment banking.
So, what industries do you serve?
I do all of them, and really, what I focus on isn't so much. I'm agnostic. It's not really so much on the industry, but what I focus on when I look at a business is who the buyer is going to be.
Okay.
And so I deal pretty much with private equity and
so you're more buy side.
No, well, I have done buy side.
Okay.
And that's that's something that I've done in the past. But I'm mostly sell side.
Okay.
But representing the seller, I know how to deal with private equity, and I know how to deal with strategics because you deal with them long enough. You know the reason for the deal structure. You know the reason why there's rollover equity. You know the reason for earnout. It's not just let's have one.
Yeah.
There's a reason behind it.
Yeah.
And as long as you know that reason, then it gives you kind of a leg up when you're negotiating it. And so that's kind of where I've kind of position myself.
Okay. So you're mostly sell side, perhaps a little bit of buy side in the past.
Yeah. So
these are sellers of businesses that wish to exit.
Yes.
Okay. And either to a strategic buyer or to private equity. You ever done an IPO or?
No. That's a JP Morgan thing.
Okay.
I'll leave that to them. But no, I'm very focused on the exit.
Okay.
And what I do.
What size of companies, like revenue targets, do you mostly work with?
Right now, it's anywhere between $10 million to $30 million, $40 million in revenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so basically that $50 million threshold is kind of what you like to stay underneath.
Yes, because I don't want to compete with the investment bankers. That's the main reason.
Yeah.
It's not that we can't do it, but it's just it's about my space.
I know when I sold back in 2009, I paid $375,000 as a fee, and it was the way they organized the fee. I'm not going to tell you who it is. It's a big bank. It's a investment bank, but we had a minimum up to like a $15 million deal, and anything above $15 million, they got 1%, almost like a commission. Of course, we did hit the above the 15 million hurdle. So when you add it all together, I think it started at 275, ended up at 375. But What are some of the fee structures? Or do you work on commission? Or
Yeah, it's I charge a little retainer just so that
to get going.
Well, not to get going, but to make sure the seller is committed. Right.
Okay.
So I just need him to write a little check, and it's not much. It's not much at all, and so the amount isn't the issue. It's just I want him to write a check, along with signing the engagement letter. Yeah. But yes, the commission is in the size that we're talking about is a tiered approach, and I use two types of commission, and it goes. I don't really want to give out my trade secrets, but I will. So on smaller deals with deals that are below $5 million, it's 10% for the first $1 million, 8% for the second, and 6% after that. So you can do the math. Anything above $5 million-ish, I will say, then what I charge is 5% for the first $5 million, and then 4%, 3%, 2% every $5 million increment.
Yeah.
And that's probably similar. Although, when you get into the $100 million range, it will be exactly
smaller.
what you said. Here's the minimum. If we get this, there's another 2% on the commission for the whatever it may be. So there's a lot of different structures. I think for the size businesses that I'm dealing with, it's pretty standard. And the other thing too is every business has a real estate component to it. Right? So, the owner may own the real estate, so we sell the real estate with the business, and that's a separate transaction. Or if the seller doesn't own the real estate, there's a third party that holds the real estate. I've got to deal with the third party to make sure that we can get the new owner in with a lease that makes sense. Typically, the life of the loan, which is 10 years. So there's a lot of that as well. So there's every deal. There's basically two commissions. Yeah.
And how long does it usually take for you to execute a deal? Is it 3, 4, 6 months, or a little longer?
Well, the larger deals where there's private equity and strategics, it's much quicker than that because we can do the research and we sort of know who the quote-unquote buyers will be, so we could target them. Okay. The smaller deals, when you don't know who the buyer is going to be and it just sits out there until the right buyer walks down the street and sees it, it could take up to a year. So I try to set, part of our job is to set expectations, right? Set an expectation of what the business can be sold for, how long it's going to take. Those are the two main things. But I like to set the expectation that it's going to take a year, and but most likely it will be 9 months, and typically we can get it done within 6 months.
and there's a lot of legwork, right? There's at least a couple months of prep work where you have to get your documents in order, and then you have to create a book, as they call it.
Yeah, a SIM, confidential.
Yep.
So
that takes a bit of time.
That takes some time. Yeah. That takes some time. Collecting the information is what takes the time. All the financials. We look at the last 3 years of tax returns. We go back even further than that with P&Ls, monthly P&Ls, balance sheets. We basically, the SIM is in essence a business plan that we write that could be in just a few strokes could be turned into a business plan. Because that's what we're pitching. We're pitching that company. But there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's needed because that's how I learn about the business. And so that's with my experience of pitching companies, I can look at a business and say, basically to myself, what could be done to make it better? And so of course, you sell the business as is, what it is, and that's how you value the business. You're not really looking into the future like we do in startups. But what I also do, the way I look at it is, if the next business owner could do this, or that, then there's more opportunity there. And that's the way I kind of look at it. And that comes from the lens of working with startups.
Right. So how many deals have you done overall?
Over the 10 years, I will average 5 or 6 deals a year.
Per year?
Some years are not that. Some years are, approaching that, I guess. So, over the last 10 years, I would say, somewhere in the 40 to 50 range.
That's not bad.
It's a little bit of little bit of
I mean, if you target 5 to 10 a year, that's pretty healthy.
Well, not 5 to 10 deals a year, but Certainly 5 to 6 deals are within it. This year, probably 5 or 6 right now, and I think this year and going forward, and we'll talk a little bit about what's happening in the market. But there is a pipeline that we've kind of developed, and I see it happening, the next 2, 3, 4 years, actually. Yeah.
What are some of the industry trends right now? What are you seeing in this?
Well, there's going to be a big clash here real soon that nobody's really talking about, and so we've all heard about the demographics going on. You got the silver tsunami, and whether you're talking about McKinsey, in their report that they published in February, they estimate 6 million businesses are going to need to change hands within the next decade, representing $14 trillion of enterprise value there. But then in the market, we've got a K-shaped market right now, right? Because a lot of the sellers coming to market aren't prepared for whatever reason. Messy books. Maybe the owner is doing everything, so there's no transition. There's not even an opportunity to have a management team behind them. You've got customer concentration. I mean, there's a wide variety of things that could sideline a deal. But what unfortunately, when we get approached to sell a company, the owner has spent 20, 30 years building this company, but they're only spending minutes to think about how to exit, and they're not really prepared. And again, that's how this idea around IQExit came about. Right. And so we, the other thing, Richard, that is terrible is the success rate of selling a business is poor. And I think that's an understatement. The International Business Broker Association say it's 25% of businesses that go to market actually transact. McKinsey says it's 5%. Either way, it's not a good percentage. I mean, if you think about that $14 trillion of enterprise value, if only 25% or 5% transacts, what is that going to do to the economy? What is that going to do to the community? What is that going to do to the banking system? Right. Talk about credit risk. Yeah. So this is something that nobody is really talking about, and it's something that my colleagues and I, that are my founders of IQExit, 3 others, we've been talking about how do we solve that, and that's really how this whole thing came about. I didn't think I would be starting another startup for sure. If you asked me, even a year and a half, 2 years ago, do I want to, do something different? I'm like, yeah, I see these great businesses every day. That's a smart play, to be honest with you, is buy a business that's ongoing. I mean, you've got infrastructure, you've got inventory, you got client, you got money coming in. Startups are risky. But saw this opportunity, and we got to fix it. Yeah.
What are some of the main issues you see, and why is the failure rate so high? So you're basically saying you sign a LOI, you start doing due diligence, and the deal falls or fails
multiple times in the same business, right?
What are some of those red flags? Like, are they just unprepared, or is the financials not in good shape, or because it's always come back like an expectation?
All of that. And look, it doesn't mean that these businesses are not good. These businesses don't have value. It's just to fix some of the problem takes time. To clean up the books doesn't take a weekend. It takes probably a couple of years to get them all sorted out. Same thing with customer concentration. If you only have 2 or 3 customers that represent 60% of your revenue,
that's a big deal.
That's a huge deal. Yeah. Think about the investor or the private equity firm that's coming in to buy it. If you lose one of those customers, where does the business go? Yeah. So that takes 2 or 3 years to figure out. And that's what's happening is business owners aren't thinking about these possible issues until it's too late, and it can't, like I mentioned, it can't be fixed during due diligence. And what's happening with the K-shape, especially sophisticated buyers, private equity, strategics, family offices, they're looking at this stuff, and instead of retrading, and negotiating down, there's so many opportunities out there. They just kind of say, okay, thank you, but no thank you. So they're using due diligence more as a filter than anything. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. So, the thought is we've got to get the business owner engaged much sooner than 12 months before he wants to exit.
Right. Yeah, just to go through that mental and physical preparation.
Right. And to get his, what I call deal team, his CPA and his wealth manager and his attorney on this, and his banker, on the same page of what we're trying to do here and start working together. Usually we engage with those, with the CPA very last minute. They become, instead of fixing, the books or preparing tax issues and things like that, they're just moving paper around at that point. And so
it kind of reminds me of like buying a house in real estate, because you go through the listing, so you prepare, you list, you get an offer, you get a bank to underwrite it. There's a lot of work that happens with the buyer side on going through validation to support the loan and so forth, and then at the very end you go through evaluation, appraisal. Yeah. And basically the appraisal can come back higher or come back lower. Yep. I've always talked to my real estate friends. I'm like, don't you think that's kind of odd? Like, why is that at the very end? It should be at the very beginning before you even set the price. So let's say your house appraises for $1 million. Yep. Like, okay, so if you're hungry, you want to sell the house, you underprice the valuation. Yep. Or if you think it's competitive, you overprice. But there's so much time wasting that happens because it could fail at the very end. Do you feel like that structure is similar in your industry as far as
Yes.
Setting and managing expectations on what is the proper valuation?
Well, one of the biggest issues that we have with sellers is their expectation of what the business is worth.
It's always higher.
Yeah, always. Yeah. Always.
I want $20 million.
Yeah, but it's only worth $2. So we spend a lot of our time resetting the expectation of the seller.
Well, that's hard.
Extremely hard.
Okay.
And it takes time.
Yeah.
And and look, you may find a buyer that might want to pay $20 million, but if they don't come to the table with $20 million in their pocket, the deal's not going to get done because it has to be financed.
Yes.
And so what we do is, and we're really good, I believe, probably one of the best out there in providing our opinion of valuation. And we've got a kind of a system at Murphy that we feel like we're spot on valuation. And now, the business owner may not believe it, but we do a really good job. The other thing that we do before we even take a business in that scale to market is I will shop that valuation and the SIM to banks and make sure that they are comfortable. Like if I find a buyer that's in good standing with experience, can we get this financed? And so I'll know before I go out to the market. And matter of fact, we put a qualification letter, pre-qual letter in the SIM, one or two of them. So when we go out, and that helps with negotiating, by the way, to say, well, this bank believes in this price that we're going out, so this is where we're, so that actually really helps more than more than you know. Yeah. So that might be the number one issue with deals not getting done is just the expectation of the seller. Yeah. He heard a multiple. From somebody at the country club that that his brother-in-law's sister, whatever, cousin, sold a company for 10x, whatever, right? And so that's part of the part of the issue.
Well, I mean, before I even hired a broker to sell my company, I wasn't even sure I was going to sell, and finally I deployed a strategy. So, all right, I'm going to explore this idea, give it a couple months and go back and pull information. I interviewed a bunch of people that recently had sold their business. And I asked them, why did you sell? How did you sell? Who did you talk to? Why did you choose that one? Who was the top three? What happened to the other two? Was there something, because I wanted to pull as much data as I could. Yeah. And then once I had kind of at least some anecdotal data points on the who, the what, the how, and the why. Then I went and engaged a broker and said, okay, based on this is who I want to sell to.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my top 5 filters.
Yep.
And one of them was cash. Like, I don't want to mess with anybody that does financing. They need to have cash to buy.
Yep.
So is that something you educate your sellers to do? Is like go engage with other successful exits to find out like what worked for them?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, sometimes I'll even refer them, especially if it's in the same industry, to somebody that I've worked with in the past.
Okay.
The other thing that I do is I want them to talk to other brokers. I want them to be committed to working with me. Mm-hmm. So I'll give them a few names to call as well. They shouldn't only talk to one, right? So yeah, I'm very transparent when it comes to that. Look, these things take time to sell, and the relationship that again, this is a relationship business, and you're going to be next to you're going to become very familiar with the seller or whoever you're dealing with in that year, because it's very intense, very emotional. That's a whole different topic right there, and you probably know what that felt like. Yeah. So
there's a whole dark side to that too.
Absolutely, there is. You got to be prepared. To walk away.
Nobody prepares you for that.
No. So there is some sensitivity to that.
Yeah.
But this is a big deal, and nobody really thinks about what it all entails of selling a business. Mm-hmm. Again, it's typically the business owner, that's their identity.
Exactly.
And so they spent all this time, building it, growing it. Mm-hmm. The business is them. It's their identity, it's their reputation. And so it's a big deal, and we need to treat it that way.
Yeah, I try to.
This isn't just a transaction, right?
Yeah,
it's a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah, I try to coach founders who are either gone through the process or after. You have to separate you as an individual from the asset itself. Yeah, because it can cause imposter syndrome and other issues post-sale that you're just not prepared for.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
I was at a closing table. All the papers were signed. The business owner could not release the keys.
Wow.
And luckily, and we sort of knew this was going to happen, and the wife was there at the closing table as well. And so I knew this was happening. She politely asked everybody to leave the room for a few minutes. And then a couple minutes later, she popped her head out the door. We walked back in, and she had the keys.
She was ready to depart with it.
Well, she was, but she knew how difficult it was. So she pried them away from him in that moment. Yeah. But it all worked out, and they're doing great. But that's just a instance of how emotional he could not physically give up those keys.
Yeah. What are some of the industries that you see are emerging right now in 2026 as far as...
Well, I can speak about private equity and what's happening in that world. I mean, they're coming down market. They're looking at home businesses, HVAC and that type of stuff. I'm even seeing private equity come down and buying, pesticide companies or those type of a guy in a truck. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is they're using arbitrage, and they're buying up, buying a company and then rolling it up, and it works, and it works really well. So the companies, the industries, the verticals that you don't really think about are the ones. I mean, auto service center is huge right now.
So basically, these are the companies that AI can't disrupt.
Yeah, and they can enhance them.
They're going after them.
Yeah.
Things that you need a human in the loop to do. That's a telling sign.
A man in a truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a telling sign. Yeah. I mean, it's like they're basically telling you what industries are going to be worth, because obviously if we own a house, we have to depend on HVAC maintenance and pesticides and landscaping and, those you can't replace with scripts. I mean, maybe when humanoids are fully commercialized, that can grow your grass or mow your grass and do your laundry. But
and what's interesting, it's verticals that you don't think about. It's like pool routes. Cleaning pools. Those are the type of those are the type of verticals that are getting swept up.
So
It's
they're
really
professional
interesting.
service firms.
Yeah.
Pro serves.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I, if I could give a recommendation to somebody that really wants to be an entrepreneur and start there, is don't think about starting something, kind of, something from scratch, right? A new idea that's out there. I would say find a vertical that you believe in and that you feel somewhat passionate about in a geography that you have some room to grow and grow it very similar.
Got it.
And you only need to do 4 or 5 of those acquisitions, and you can build something of real value.
But I guess that depends on the financing side as well, right?
Exactly. But working, if you were working smaller, you could get SBA. You can go to Live Oak or whichever. I'm not, but you could go to and get that SBA, and then the second transaction is going to be easier because you have that experience and you have cash flow. So, you're not buying the second one. You may be, buying the first one, but the business is buying the second one.
Correct.
And the third one and the fourth one.
Almost like an LBO.
Right.
Yeah.
So I worked with I just sold a business last year to a gentleman that did exactly that. I don't want to disclose too much, but he built a platform. He went to UNCW, built this platform, sold it for $20 million. And now he's going into a different industry, different vertical altogether. But he's got the recipe. He knows how to do it, and he knows how to run. Take a business that can be managed better, and that's what he's doing now. It's a phenomenal what he's done already in 4 or 5 months to that business. And he's going to be probably in the next 12 months. He's going to be looking for acquisitions in Eastern North Carolina.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and that's how you build wealth.
Yeah. Is it mostly professional service firms, or do you see like manufacturing, any kind of like hard businesses?
Well, yeah. So I actually sell a lot of manufacturing companies, and I love those. I love those businesses. I think it's really cool to go through a plant and see how things are made. And I get really excited about that. I see more strategics buying manufacturing than coming in and because they would have to be very similar, to where you have for instance, a business that is selling. I got a manufacturing company I'm taking to market, and their primary client is defense industry. SpaceX is one of their clients and so forth. There's not going to be many, it's going to be a very specific buyer for that. So manufacturing is a little bit harder, but I'm not saying that doesn't happen. That, as a private equity firm, you really got to look at synergy, and that could be the client base. If you got defense contractors that want to buy this over here, certainly that would make sense.
Yeah.
But mostly in the range, the enterprise value that I'm dealing with, it's mostly home-based. Yeah, home-based. Yeah.
Do you list
services?
Do you have a website? How do you list the businesses for sale? How can people reach out and find out what you're?
Well, I've got a website. CarolinaBusinessBroker.com is my site. But there are listing sites out there, Biz Buy Sell. And those, you'll see cupcake shops on there, but you'll also see larger deals. Axial has, there's different sites for different industries, different sized businesses, but there are plenty out there. You just do a little Google search, and if you're looking for a business to buy.
So if somebody's listening today and they want to kind of get in one of these emerging markets where maybe they can do a roll up. So you mentioned HVAC is pretty hot.
Very, very competitive.
And the multiples are increasing, I imagine.
Yeah, and I would tell you, just in the last 18 months, when I put a listing out there, I will get a couple hundred inquiries coming in that sign NDAs.
Wow.
And that we send out a SIM. And then what we typically do is give them kind of a date to say, okay, if you're interested,
let us know.
Send an indication of interest in, and then we kind of pull 4 or 5 of those. I mean, we'll do our own due diligence, and then we'll set up buyer-seller meetings. This isn't like real estate where, the owner of the house will leave, cook the cookies and then leave.
Right. Yeah.
The best for us, we want the buyer to meet the seller. The seller is the best person to sell that business because they know about it, right?
Yeah.
So now we are there to make sure things don't get off the rails, but that's the process. So we'll do a buyer-seller meeting. Typically, almost all the time, it's not during working hours. What's interesting about selling a business is we sell it without telling anybody we're selling it. Everything has to be confidential for obvious reasons. We don't want employees to know. We don't want, stakeholders to know. We don't want customers to know. We don't want their vendors, to know. We've got to do this very confidentially. And matter of fact, I walk into many businesses as a insurance person,
Right.
But yeah, that's something that, you won't see a sign in front of a business for sale.
How important is culture and brand awareness when it comes to valuing a business and growing a business through acquisitions?
Yeah, so the value isn't really based on culture or brand. It's based on the financials, right, and on the multiples. But it is critical to getting a deal done. So I can't emphasize how important culture is. I go in, and that's the first thing I pick up is culture. If it's a good culture, I went not too long ago through a manufacturing plant, and every employee said hello, to the owner, the CEO of the business, and it wasn't just hello. I mean, they were generally engaged. It was quite remarkable. It's probably the best I've ever seen. He's also the guy that took me out to lunch and told me that if I wanted to represent him, I had to eat these red hot peppers, and I'm not a pepper guy, but point being, you meet all kinds out there, right? But yeah, culture is very, very important. But I've also dealt with businesses that don't have much of a culture, and that is the reason, in my mind, that their financials are lagging a lot. So I kind of spin that saying, okay, if I could find a buyer that can, sees culture for what it is and has a passion about it, and there's certain questions you can ask, but there's the opportunity is if you come in and just fix the culture, the revenue is going to improve easily. Everybody's going to be more productive. It's going to be a much better place to work. So I look at a business from different angles, and it kind of gets back to where I started, where we all start.
Yeah, I agree with the culture aspect. We were talking about 90% of deals fail post-acquisition because of transition.
Yeah,
I've been a part of, and I've seen it firsthand. Buyer will take over asset and start making changes, whether it be benefit changes, reducing salary, reducing this, and the workplace becomes toxic and it's not enjoyable, and people end up, leaving or churn, right? And turnover. So then the idea, I've always heard, like, going into a deal, expect 10 to 15% of turnover day one, but have plans so that you can replace them. But yeah, culture is so important, and I don't understand why buyers even think about changing culture, because culture is what got you there. And culture is what's going to take you forward in the future. So. But they end up thinking they can make some strategic decisions, and to save a couple dimes, it ends up killing the business.
Typically, when we at the closing table, we're done. My job is done. Right. But I will tell folks, because I want them to be successful. That I'll give them my opinion on culture and if anything needs to be done. Most of the time, if it's a successful company, I will say do not make a single decision for at least the first 6 months. Let it ride. You'll figure out if you need to change anything, but don't go in there day one. Now, if in the case where the culture is broken, I will say work on fixing the culture. Improve it. Don't tear it down, but improve upon it. Right. The other thing, business owners, sellers don't realize is there is a transition. If they're looking to start, and close one day and get on their cruise the next day, I've got to tell them it's probably going to be a good, 3 months afterwards that there's going to be some sort of transition period, right?
Yeah.
And then in some cases, depending on the type of buyer, they'll have an earnout, and the only reason for an earnout is to keep the seller around for a year or 2 years, at a minimum, right? To incentivize them. Yeah. And so, when somebody says, I want to be done with this in a year, I want you to sell the business, I'm like, you're going to be here a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah.
And it breaks their heart, to be honest with you, because they're burned out or they're sick or what, there's many different reasons. But that's unfortunately a conversation that comes up almost every time.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned earnout. Getting into some of the deal terms. So earnout is a portion of the sale delayed in the future if it hits incentives
typically
or performance metrics.
Yep.
So deals right now that you see get done, what does that look like? Is it 70% purchase price down, 30% as an earnout over 2-3 years?
It's all over the board. I'm not going to give you a general thing, but I will say it's usually broken up where you're going to get cash up front, and then there's an earnout, and then there's going to be possibly a equity rollover.
Okay.
Which isn't all bad. Yeah. So those are the three main things.
Okay.
And this is good for the business owner that might be in their late 40s, early 50s. They're not ready to retire yet, but they want to take some chips off the table. And so what we will do, and I will give them an expectation. All right, this is the way it's going to be structured. And so when they're going in, they kind of understand that we're going to get a big chunk of that in cash that they can kind of put away and safety net for him and his or her family. And then part of that is going to be a earnout, which is typically a year or two, depending on the buyer. And it's going to be based on key metrics and doing that. Usually it's an increase of EBITDA, which kind of gets fuzzy because how are you going to measure that?
Yeah.
And if you're coming in and running the company and you run up expenses, how is that going to be measured against EBITDA?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that we negotiate.
Yeah.
But again, as long as we know that the idea is to keep that business owner, then we know that business owner has value to them.
Right.
So we can kind of get around with that. So the last one I negotiated, I think I cut the earnout in half and did it within the same physical year as the transaction. And because the business owner knew what his EBITDA was going to be at the end of that year.
Right.
So he was like, we got this. I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the rollover equity, which depending on the company, that the private equity firm or the family office or strategic, not so much strategic, but certainly private equity likes that rollover equity. It's cash that they don't have to put out, and basically what you're doing is you're getting shares of the holding company in essence. Yeah. This is not all bad, because it gives you an opportunity for a second bite of the apple. So if you believe in what they're doing, what they're building, and you think that most private equity firms have to sell in 5 or 7 years, there's going to be another opportunity. And if that platform grows and you manage your own little part of it, then you could get sometimes much bigger piece with that second bite of the apple.
Right.
So now, with that being said, my job changes a little bit from representing the seller. I'm still representing the seller, but I'm also now doing due diligence on that platform. Is it because you're basically the seller is investing in that business, right? So we do a little bit more due diligence on what that platform is, and we're looking at operating agreements and things like that. So it's kind of a reverse. We become the buyers in essence.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, if they're going to sell their business, get as much money up front as you can.
Absolutely.
Because the earnouts are so tricky. Because as you mentioned, they may put debt on the books, right?
Yeah.
They may have to pay higher interest
Yeah,
rates.
we're going to buy 15 trucks next year or whatever.
But then also it's like, I want to cut salaries. I want to cut benefits and try to squeeze the margin or raise prices. So it almost seems like somebody's going to get hit. It's either going to be your customers with higher prices, or it's going to be your employees with lower comp and lower fringe. Because that's only the two levers you have. And then if you add debt, to finance the deal, it just puts them in a awkward position. Right. But
what I tell my sellers who I work with is, you'll want to do the deal because of the deal, the cash and maybe the rollover equity.
Yeah.
You have to assume you're never going to see that earn out.
Yeah.
So, now if you're depending on that earn out, then I would hesitate and maybe let's go find another or negotiate something a little bit different.
The earn-out's healthy because it does set expectations and it has incentives built in for the buyer and seller. And it just basically says, well, if the growth and the pipeline are as healthy as you said it is, then you should hit this metric.
Right. As long as it's fair, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what we did in one of the last deals I did on the earnout, I said, well, because they were like, we want to see an extra $1 million in EBITDA, or we want you to hit that, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, well, what if he hits $200,000 above that? Are you going to give us more? And they rocked back. And they had to say yes, right?
Yeah.
So we moved that whole conversation to where now my client was on offense, saying, "Oh, we're going to crush that, but I want more." And the buyers couldn't say no to that. So we actually did a pretty good job on that.
Yeah. When we're getting into business operations, most people think about organic growth. Like, how can we grow the business in organic? But there's this whole inorganic side through acquisitions. And I believe Harvard Business School teaches a class about entrepreneurship through acquisition, where they educate people about, your industry and how you could use finance and go out and get loans and kind of structure some of these deals. And you'll put some capital on the books, but you can raise, just like you go out and raise friends and family friends money, you can do the same thing through an acquisition. So it's an interesting model for sure.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I represented a company that was a Bobcat distributor, and they were looking at bringing in other Bobcat distributors at, $40, $50, $60 million. So it's not just small deals. And the thing about it is, if you're a business owner and you're successful running your business, and it's a similar business, a bank would be crazy to turn you down.
Right.
Especially if that business you're acquiring is profitable and you're profitable, you know how to run a business. They're not going to turn you down. And typically you don't even have to put money down for those deals.
Yeah.
So once you have a platform, it's easy to grow. And absolutely, growing through acquisition is a much easier thing than growing organically. Matter of fact, we were talking about universities and business school earlier. I pitched the idea that in their business school they should be teaching corporate development. Because I think every business at a size should have somebody within that business looking for acquisitions at all time. At all time. If the business owner understands scale and he can manage scale, then everybody should be looking for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
To teach somebody how to go out and identify, because it takes time. Right. And it's a little bit different being on the buy side. You've got to look at 20, 30 businesses, it's a funnel, right?
Exactly.
Before you find one that you want to buy, but they're out there, and especially with the demographics right now. Huntington Bank did a survey not too long ago. I think it was in February or maybe January. That they did a survey on their own customers. Doing $1 million to $500 million in revenue. 54% of their customers said that they're looking to transition in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So there are business owners out there looking to looking to sell their businesses.
Yeah.
So right now is a perfect time, great time to grow a business through acquisition.
Yeah, you mentioned Silver Tsunami. So just if anybody's unfamiliar with that, that's the baby boomers that are looking to retire and transition the business and go to market.
Well, it's just baby boomers in general, right?
Yeah.
But those that are in the 50 and above range looking to sell their business, or transition their business. It could be done through succession, but most of the time it's through an exit. It's a huge market.
Yeah.
Right
now, do you only, for the plans for your company, are you only servicing North Carolina market, or is it the whole Southeast, or are you all over the United States?
Well, a lot of this, there's travel in M&A because you're doing buyer-seller meetings, and even before you take it out to the market, you want to spend some time with the business and so forth. So I've got what I call teammates in Virginia and South Carolina, but predominantly it's on the sell side. It's South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Okay. I like to stay in Eastern North Carolina. I've done Raleigh, Durham. That's easy. I've got some deals I'm working on in the western part of the state. So I'm a little, I'll go outside. I'm kind of looking at businesses a little bit differently, and in our business, time is all we have.
Time is the enemy of all deals.
Time is, and there's a couple of sayings, right? That and time kills deals, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of try to stay close to home.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah,
that's very smart.
Yeah.
And I guess now, with the legislative changes happening in Virginia, I imagine you're going to have more interest in people wanting to exit.
Yeah, it's a little. You know it better than I do, right? But I get the news down here. It's a little interesting what's going on up there.
Yeah,
so I don't know if there's buyer remorse something.
Understatement.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
But yeah, I've got associates up there, and they're shaking their heads a little bit.
A lot of people are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but I appreciate you coming by today.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. I know I've heard a lot about you from, UNC Wilmington, Heather, and Jim Roberts, and so forth, and I'm sure we're going to be in the same circles going forward.
Oh, it'd be good.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
Anything I do to help promote you, or maybe insert you in some of the things that I'm doing with some of the curriculum I'm teaching, some of the businesses on growth with acquisition, I'd love to collaborate with you.
It'd be my pleasure. I mean, I think we have the opportunity to give back. I met Jim Roberts a week ago and went to one of his events after I met with him one-on-one. He said, just come on by and check it out. And I was amazed by the community that he's kind of building. It's inspiring. And so I feel like every meeting that I have, it's like puting another tool in my Swiss Army knife, right?
100%.
And so I feel like maybe there's something I can share, whether it's through experience or whatever. So I'm all for giving back.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. Well, we're lucky to have you in our backyard.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Amplified CEO is produced by Topsail Insider, edited by Coastal Carolina Network, and sponsored by Cape Fear Ventures. For more information about Amplified CEO, Richard Stroupe, or Cape Fear Ventures, please contact Krista at 910-800-0111 or Krista at topsailinsider.com.